Stop everything. Welcome to the channel for a jaw-dropping true story about a Wall Street titan whose cold, calculated life was blindsided by the biggest secret of all. Get your popcorn ready. If you believe that life serves up karma 4 times over, smash that subscribe button and give us a like. You absolutely cannot miss how this ruthless CEO's past came back to haunt him, multiplied by 4. He used to joke, "A family? That's a distraction I can't afford." Now, he's face to face with the ex-wife he abandoned, and she's pregnant with his quadruplets. Chapter 1. The Manhattan Fortress. Harrison Vance was the very definition of unstoppable. As CEO of Vance & Co. Investments, one of the most prestigious investment firms on Wall Street, he had an empire at his feet, along with a fiancée as meticulously ruthless as himself. But on one seemingly innocent weekend, he found himself pulling up to an exclusive Hamptons baby shower, all for the sake of closing a deal. Nothing, however, could have prepared him for the sight that greeted him. His ex-wife, Juliette Reyes, radiant under the soft glow of the garden lights, was surrounded by pastel decorations and well wishes. Most shocking of all, she was visibly, massively pregnant, with quadruplets. As champagne flutes clinked and cameras flashed, Harrison realized his perfectly constructed life was about to shatter. Harrison Vance prided himself on the singular focus that propelled him from a blue-collar background in rural Pennsylvania to one of the most influential CEOs in the financial capital of the world. For decades, his sole purpose was conquering the corporate ladder. His parents, working-class proprietors of a small hardware store, taught him the power of discipline, determination, and community. These lessons molded Harrison into a formidable man, but never entirely without soul, until certain romantic disappointments stripped him of all vulnerability. A graduate of Wharton Business School, Harrison built Vance & Co. from nothing. His tenacity and gift for reading the markets propelled him to an early fortune. By his mid-30s, he was a recognized name in finance, featured on the cover of Forbes. Everyone wanted to know how the boy from humble origins had become the unstoppable giant controlling multi-billion-dollar portfolios. His shrewdness in negotiation, coupled with a cold, analytical perspective, left little room for personal entanglement. Or so people assumed. One person, however, had managed to crack Harrison's armor: Juliette Reyes. The daughter of a successful entrepreneur from the Southwest, Juliette had arrived in New York City with dreams of becoming an acclaimed modern artist. Their love story began with casual encounters in a cafe near Harrison's first Midtown office, connecting over an improbable blend of cortados and conversations spanning his dizzying financial world and the fluid creativity in which she thrived. They eventually married in a whirlwind ceremony that combined his humble roots and her vibrant heritage. However, within 2 years, the fairy tale unraveled. Harrison's relentless drive for success, constant travel, and nascent business deals overshadowed the warmth Juliette tried to preserve. Their marriage ended in a torrent of misunderstandings and painful accusations. Juliette felt marginalized by Harrison's empire building, while he felt she didn't understand the relentless demands of his world. Their divorce was swift, quiet, and painfully definite. They hadn't spoken since. Regret had long hardened in the core of Harrison's heart, though he never showed it publicly. He masked his pain behind impeccable suits, philanthropic galas, and a new fiancée, Charlie Bellwether. Charlie matched Harrison's ambition and sagacity. She was a top-tier corporate litigation attorney, known for her no-nonsense approach to both business and romance. To the world, they were a power couple, unstoppable, cold, and set on carving their initials into the city skyline. But occasionally, Harrison would recall Juliette's distinctive laugh, the sight of her sketches, the smell of paint on her clothes, and the wistful illusions of what life could have been if they had found a healthy balance. These memories were kept buried deep beneath market reports and investor dinners until everything changed on that fateful Sunday. The plan was simple. The Vander Lins, an old money Long Island family, were hosting a baby shower for their daughter. They were also key potential clients for Vance & Cotto, controlling substantial legacy funds. Harrison had received a last-minute invitation from his friend and business associate, Trevor Hayes, who insisted that mingling in a less formal setting could help seal a lucrative deal. Harrison believed in never missing an opportunity. Charlie, tied up with a critical case, couldn't accompany him, so Harrison made the trip alone. Little did he know that the expectant mother at the center of the baby shower was none other than the woman he once promised forever to. And she was expecting quadruplets. Harrison arrived at the sprawling Hamptons estate late that afternoon. The summer sun bathed the towering hedges and rose gardens in a warm glow. He adjusted his cufflinks and straightened his tie before stepping out of his sleek black limousine. Gathering his composure, he forced a personable smile, ready to charm the affluent crowd. Inside, pastel balloons, soft ribbons, and an abundance of floral arrangements added to the joyful atmosphere. Nursery-themed songs played softly, while waiters circulated through the crowd with trays of champagne, sparkling cider, and small canapes. Harrison immediately spotted Trevor Hayes waving him over. The older man was an astute networker. Harrison approached, exchanging polite greetings with guests whose names he barely remembered. "Harrison, you made it!" Trevor exclaimed, clapping him on the back. "Come, let me introduce you to a few people who are considering moving their portfolios to Vance & Co." As he conversed with various guests, Harrison feigned absorption by the baby decorations and diaper cake centerpieces. He took mental notes of who controlled which trust fund and who might need a shrewd financial advisor. If Juliet had ever seen him in this setting, she would have remarked on how absolutely impenetrable he appeared. As Trevor guided him deeper into the party, Harrison noticed the sudden quiet hovering over a small group near the terrace. Their eyes were fixed on one woman. She stood with her back to him, wearing a flowing pink dress that elegantly encased an unmistakable baby bump, a very large one. She held a glass of sparkling cider, smiling softly as a friend rubbed her shoulders and murmured something supportive. When the woman turned slightly, the world stopped. Dark, lustrous hair, eyes that once reflected a moving charm, and a face that had haunted his regrets. It was Juliet. She looked radiant, though different. Her cheeks fuller, her figure maternal and soft. But that face, that calm confidence, Harrison recognized instantly. He felt the floor disappear beneath him. All the surrounding noise faded, replaced by an intense ringing in his ears. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Then, panic set in, followed by a burning curiosity. Why was she here? She never mentioned wealthy connections in the Hamptons. And most baffling of all, how far along was she? Her stomach was enormous, suggestive of an advanced pregnancy, perhaps multiples. His heart pounded against his chest as he remembered the discussions about children that once dominated the last days of their marriage. Juliet wanted children. Harrison claimed he wasn't ready. Then, ironically, soon after the divorce, he started imagining a future that did include children. Just not with Juliet. Without realizing he had moved, Harrison stopped near the terrace doors. Juliet's friend stepped away, leaving her alone. It was a scene almost too perfectly orchestrated. She sensed his presence, turning so slowly. His eyes locked onto her face. 1,000 regrets stirred, colliding with pure shock. She stared back, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions. Surprise, tension, and a glimpse of something more he couldn't name. "Juliet," he whispered. the word escaping as a half-breath, a half-question. She blinked. Her lips parted. A moment passed. Then she found her voice. "Harrison, what are you doing here?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. In the awkward silence, Juliet crossed her arms over her large belly, an instinctive protective gesture. Trevor, utterly oblivious, burst in at that moment. "Juliet, here is the potential business partner I was telling you about, Harrison Vance. Harrison, this is Juliet Vanderlyn." Trevor stopped abruptly when he saw them locked in mutual shock. He looked between them. "You two know each other?" Neither answered. Harrison found his voice first, stammering. We were once married," Juliet stated, chin raised. The words sliced the air like a knife, leaving Trevor speechless. Harrison cleared his throat, suppressing the wave of discomfort. "I wasn't aware you were the expectant mother." Juliet gave a half-nod, half-shrug. "They're distant relatives on my mother's side. I reconnected with them after the divorce, and they offered me a place to stay while I focus on my art. They've been incredibly supportive." Her voice was polite, but guarded. Harrison's gaze drifted back to her stomach. He couldn't help it. I had no idea." She ran a hand over your belly. "I wasn't going to send you an announcement." Trevor tried to lighten the mood, though his voice trembled with confusion. "Juliet, darling, you need to sit down. Let me get you a chair. Harrison, you can But Juliet dismissed him with a wave. Her eyes never left Harrison's face. "I'm fine, Trevor. Truly. Just a bit exhausted." She paused, as if battling an internal war. "Excuse me, I need some air." She turned, walking purposefully toward the garden. Harrison stood reeling, barely aware of Trevor patting his back in concern. A million thoughts raced through his mind. Why did she seem so alone? Were the babies his? The timelines? He tried to calculate them in his head. It was unbearable. Juliet left the marriage nearly 2 years ago. Could quadruplets have been conceived that long ago? Or was it more recent? That was impossible if they hadn't seen each other. Unless he had to speak to her alone. Ignoring the perplexed faces and Trevor calling out, Harrison followed Juliet outside, his heart hammering with every step. Juliet had found a secluded bench under a large weeping willow near the estate's koi pond. The late afternoon light shimmered on the water, a perfect reflection of the life blossoming within her. Harrison approached cautiously, remembering how much Juliet loved painting landscapes. He watched her for a moment before clearing his throat. "Jules," he began softly, using the shortened version of her name he once whispered with such affection. She stiffened slightly but didn't turn. "Don't call me that," she replied, her voice muffled. Harrison circled the bench, stopping a few feet away. "Can we talk?" Juliet looked up, her eyes filled with caution. "Talk about what, Harrison? We signed the divorce papers. We moved on. That was the plan." He exhaled sharply. The memories flooded back. The day she left, the tears streaming down her face as he pretended he was too busy to go after her. "You're pregnant," he said, stating the obvious. The words carried a tremor he couldn't hide. Juliet tilted her chin up. Something in her eyes resembled defiance. "Yes, with quadruplets." Harrison sank onto the bench beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I heard. Juliet, are they?" He couldn't complete the question. She folded her hands over her stomach, her eyes fixed on a distant point across the pond. "They are mine," she said softly. Then she glanced sideways at him. "And they are yours." It would have been kinder if she had punched him. He stared, mouth slightly open, his pulse roaring in his ears. For a moment, he felt weightless, as if everything that once anchored him had vanished. The profound implications of her words shredded his composure. 4 children, all mine. He swallowed, his voice shaking. "But that's not possible. We've been divorced for 2 years. How?" Juliet let out a shaky sigh. "Sit down, Harrison, and let me explain. truly explain. Because we once discussed having children. You kept saying you weren't ready. Then everything fell apart. But I wanted a child, even if us didn't work out. I went through IVF soon after we separated. Harrison blinked in confusion. His mind was spinning. Why without me? I used embryos we froze before your business trip to Dubai. She looked directly at him. Remember? It was a procedure we considered when we thought we wanted a family, but weren't sure when. The plan was to keep our options open, you said. I didn't even know if the embryos were viable. After the divorce, I was devastated. I felt so alone. So I took a chance. I wanted to have at least a part of the dream we once shared. Harrison remembered fleeting conversations about freezing embryos, just in case they decided to have children later. He had dismissed it at the time as a mere practicality. He never imagined Juliet would use them alone. Tears sprang to her eyes, but she blinked them away. Obviously, I didn't plan on quadruplets. Doctors said sometimes IVF can lead to multiples. It happened. And when I realized, I was about 8 weeks along. I wanted to reach out to you, but we ended so badly. You seemed so bitter. Then I heard rumors you were engaged, so I decided to do this on my own. Her voice broke on the last sentence. Harrison sat there, stunned. He rubbed his face with his hand, trying to wake up from the surreal dream. You should have told me, Jules. I had a right to know. She gave him a wounded look. You did, Harrison. But you didn't want me when I was your wife. You made it very clear your career came first. You even said at one point that children would be a distraction. I thought I would spare myself and my children the pain of being an afterthought. The silence stretched between them. Harrison wrestled with a storm of guilt and shock. The knowledge that he was about to become the father, was the father, of 4 children shattered the meticulously constructed facade he had cultivated for years. I am sorry, he finally whispered, his voice sounding alien. I'm sorry I made you feel you couldn't reach out. That is my fault. But please, Juliet, let me be a part of their lives, whatever the cost. Juliet searched his face, her eyes filled with uncertainty. Are you saying that now, in the shock of the moment? Are you still the man who sees family as an obstacle to success? Because these babies deserve more than an absent father who only cares about his next merger. The question hit his chest. He remembered nights working past midnight, missing anniversaries, ignoring Juliet's calls. He also remembered how the emptiness remained, no matter how many zeros he added to his net worth. I have changed, he said finally, with a painful sincerity he rarely allowed himself. I thought about us often. Juliet's expression softened, but the distrust still lingered. I don't know if I can believe you. Before Harrison could respond, the soft sound of approaching footsteps startled them. It was Trevor again, a discreet look on his face. Juliet, darling, I hate to interrupt, but the party games are about to begin, and your relatives are looking for you. Are you all right? Juliet stiffened on the bench. Yes, Trevor, thank you. She turned back to Harrison, her eyes glistening with unresolved emotion. We will talk later, not here. She rose slowly, with Trevor offering a hand to help her up. Harrison remained on the bench, his entire being in turmoil. The life he had so carefully built, his corporate empire, his new relationship, his obsession with control. It all suddenly felt precarious, overshadowed by the presence of 4 tiny hearts beating inside the woman he once loved. Interactive question. If you were Juliet, would you have used the embryos without notifying him? Or would you have prioritized communication? We want to read your honest opinion in the comments. Activate notifications. The next chapter reveals the inevitable, explosive confrontation with his fiancée, Charlie Bellwether. Comment below if you think Harrison can save his engagement and be a full-time father. Chapter 2 continued. The bomb drops. Harrison spent the remainder of the baby shower in a profound state of shock. He made his obligatory rounds, forcing polite smiles and mechanical handshakes with potential clients. Inside, his mind was a chaotic storm. The woman carrying his children was the same woman he had divorced because he claimed he wasn't ready for a family. Now, he was about to have one. Multiplied by 4, he caught fleeting glimpses of Juliet as the party games began. People cheered as they tried to guess baby food flavors and scribbled on forms to predict delivery dates, babies' weights, and potential names. He saw her laughing with an older silver-haired woman, whom he presumed was a Van der Linde relative. The sight of her genuine happiness stung his heart, reminding him of simpler times. Finally, the older woman gently guided Juliet toward the estate's main living room, away from the crowded terrace. Harrison seized the moment to slip out, needing air and time to clear his head. The late afternoon sky was streaked with pinks and golds. The scent of salt water drifted in from the nearby ocean. Stop! Here is a crucial question for you. If you were in Juliet's shoes, would you have used the embryos without telling him, or would you have prioritized communication? We want to read your honest opinion in the comments below. As Harrison stood composing himself in the garden, Charlotte, Charlie Bellwether, appeared. She must have driven straight from her legal meeting. Dressed in an immaculate navy pantsuit that accentuated her commanding presence, Charlie looked the corporate powerhouse she was. Her eyebrows arched in confusion. "Harrison?" she asked, approaching him. "What's wrong? You're pale. Baby showers are not exactly your scene, but I'm always willing to expand our circle." Harrison blinked. He struggled to form a coherent explanation. "Charlie, I wasn't expecting you so soon." Charlie's gaze sharpened, taking in his rigid posture and distracted state. "Yes, well, let's go in. There are important people you might want to meet." They headed back toward the luxurious main hall, where a string quartet was now playing softly. Charlie flashed her impeccable smile at the few guests she recognized from other corporate events. Just then, a muffled sound came from the living room. An assistant announced loudly, "And the mother-to-be has just revealed the sex and number of the babies. It's 2 boys and 2 girls." A wave of applause erupted, cameras flashed, and Juliet laughed, her eyes glistening with a mixture of joy and tears. Harrison and Charlie froze. Charlie saw Juliet, saw the immense belly, and then noticed the look in Harrison's eyes, a combination of despair and fierce, possessive wonder. "Charlie, I need to tell you something." Harrison's voice was strained. "The expectant mother is my ex-wife, Juliet, and I'm the father." Charlie's composure fractured. The shock was palpable. "You're the father? Of quadruplets?" "Yes. 2 boys, 2 girls. Our children." The statement broke on his lips. He couldn't finish. Not here. Not now. Charlie's shock quickly morphed into something sharper. Anger, perhaps, or fear. "This is unbelievable. You're about to have 4 children with another woman, and we're supposed to be planning our wedding?" "I know, and I'm sorry," he said urgently. "But what can I do? I have to be a part of their lives. I can't just pretend." She cut him off with a harsh, cynical laugh. "How noble. But have you considered how this affects me? My firm could view this as a problematic personal scandal. And what if you suddenly want to play house with her because of the children?" Harrison reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Charlie, I don't have all the answers. All I know is that I won't abandon my children. We will have to figure this out together if our relationship means anything to us." She pursed her lips, recovering her corporate composure. "I need time to think." She looked at him as if he were a stranger, then turned and walked out. Harrison stood alone, the echoes of the nearly empty estate surrounding him. Outside, night had fallen, moonlighting the gardens. There was no going back to the man he was just hours before. Comment below. What should Harrison's first step be? Should he prioritize talking to Charlie and salvaging the engagement, or immediately securing a stable home environment for Juliet and the babies? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The next chapter is an emotional roller coaster as Harrison and Juliet navigate an impossible co-parenting arrangement. Chapter 3. The Impossible Compromise. The weeks that followed the baby shower were a maelstrom of emotional upheaval and logistical challenges for Harrison. He found himself juggling urgent meetings at Vance & Company, where the board anxiously eyed a potentially damaging public scandal, with frequent, cautious visits to the Van der Linde estate to see Juliet. He was torn between the persona of the unstoppable CEO and the nascent father, struggling with paternal instincts he never realized he possessed. The news spread rapidly within certain social circles. Whispers circulated. The ex-wife of CEO Harrison Vance is expecting quadruplets. His quadruplets. Harrison's PR team quickly contained the gossip, but the cracks still showed. His image, once meticulously controlled, was now overshadowed by familial responsibilities no one had anticipated. Charlotte. Charlie Bellwether's reaction was tepid at best. Though she hadn't officially ended their engagement, she maintained her distance, throwing herself intensely into her high-profile legal case. Their conversations became tense, formal, as if they were business partners negotiating a difficult contract. She insisted on separate apartments for now, moving back to her own condo after previously sharing Harrison's penthouse. Harrison couldn't blame her for needing space. Meanwhile, Juliet's health demanded increasing attention. Her obstetrician ordered partial bed rest to prevent premature labor, as her swollen ankles and aching back made her nights sleepless. Harrison took executive action, hiring a private nurse, Mrs. Davies, a kind woman recommended by a trusted friend. Mrs. Davies was discreet and experienced with high-risk pregnancies. Juliet initially resisted the idea, viewing it as another aggressive intrusion of Harrison's control, but finally conceded that she needed the help for the baby's sake. Some afternoons, Harrison arrived with groceries, specialized support pillows, or even new art supplies for Juliet's small studio. She remained cautious around him, but a fragile camaraderie formed. They talked about baby names, a monumental task for four, and planned the nursery, though they still didn't know where Juliet would ultimately live, carefully skirting discussions of their past. One afternoon, Harrison sat at Juliet's small kitchen table, flipping through color swatches for the nursery. She wanted soft pastels that weren't overly stereotypical, gentle greens, delicate yellows, maybe lavender. Juliet sipped her herbal tea, occasionally wincing at a wave of discomfort. "Are you all right?" Harrison asked, noticing her grimace. She took a sharp breath. "Just a contraction, I think. The doctor said I might get Braxton Hicks contractions more often, because of the quadruplets." He frowned, concern etched on his face. "Do we need to call Mrs. Davies?" Juliet shook her head. "No, it's passing now. I'll be fine." She looked up, meeting his worried gaze. "You're different from how I remember Harrison." He put down the color swatch. "Different how?" She traced the rim of her mug. "Softer, more present. I'm not used to you just being here, outside your business empire." Harrison sighed, leaning forward. "I've realized how empty that empire can feel if you don't have someone to share it with, or if you aren't building it with a purpose greater than yourself." He paused. "I know that doesn't erase what happened, but I see things differently now." Juliet's eyes shimmered with unspoken sadness. "I used to wonder if you would ever slow down enough to notice life was passing you by. Our marriage ended because we weren't on the same page about family and priorities. And now here we are, about to bring 4 new lives into the world. It's the ultimate irony." He leaned across the table, gently taking her hand. The warmth of her skin, the slight tremor in her fingers, felt painfully familiar. "All I can do is be here now," he said softly. "For you and for them." A tiny tear escaped her eye. "Thank you." Just at that moment, the sound of a car door closing outside startled them. Charlie walked in moments later, her face set with determination. She had used the gate code Harrison gave her months ago for the Vanderlyn estate. She paused in the kitchen doorway, taking in the intimate scene with cautious eyes. Harrison quickly stood up, clearing his throat. "Charlie, hello. You didn't call," she stated. She stepped forward, offering Juliet a courteous nod. "I apologize for the intrusion. I just needed to talk to Harrison." Juliet sensed the tension and started to rise. "I'll give you two some privacy." Charlie gently waved her back down. "No, please stay. This concerns all of us, really." She took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself. "I've been thinking about us, Harrison and me, and about the children. I've talked to some of my colleagues, including my mentor, and she gave me perspective on how having a family can fit into a high-profile career. She reminded me that life rarely follows our neat schedules." Harrison exchanged a look with Juliet. "So?" Charlie moved to the table, placing her hands on the edge. "I love you, Harrison, and I realize that if this is part of your life, I have to decide if it's part of mine, too. We can't ignore that they are your children and that they are coming soon. If I walk away now, I might regret it. I would like to keep our engagement, Vamdad, if you still want it, and I would like to support you in raising these children. We will arrange a custody agreement that is fair to Juliet, perhaps shared parenting time or something that respects her role as the mother, but also allows us to be present." Juliet's shoulders stiffened, but she offered a small nod. "I'm open to discussing that. Right now, the priority is getting these babies safely to term." Charlie acknowledged her. "Of course, I'm not trying to force my way in. I just want a seat at the table." Harrison looked between the two women, his heart hammered with a mixture of relief and dread. This was far from a clean resolution, but it was a start, a fragile truce, if nothing else. "We will take this step by step," he said, his voice steady. "For the babies." Juliet offered a cautious smile. "For the babies." Yet, beneath the polite words and forced smiles, each woman knew the path ahead was fraught with potential collisions of jealousy, guilt, and heartache. Interactive. Question: Charlie has offered to stay and co-parent. As Harrison, do you feel relieved because you have external support, or trapped because you are being forced to juggle two major relationships? Comment your honest reaction. Relieved or trapped, and why? Don't forget to like and subscribe. The next chapter is the final countdown as the quadruplets arrive, forcing Harrison to make a definitive choice about his future. Chapter 4. The final countdown and the birth. August arrived with scorching heat and a palpable sense of anticipation. Juliet's medical appointments increased from weekly to bi-weekly, and each time revealed that the quadruplets were growing well, but dangerously stressing her body. She was advised to stay off her feet and remain close to a hospital equipped to handle high-risk multiple births. Harrison made the executive decision to move Juliet, along with Mrs. Davies, to a luxury apartment near Central Park in Manhattan, just 5 minutes from the city's best neonatal hospital. The Hamptons estate was beautiful, but too far from immediate care. Juliet initially resisted, fearing it looked like Harrison was controlling her again, but after a near-fainting spell, she conceded for the baby's sake. Charlie, to her credit, collaborated. She arranged top-tier doctors through her law firm's insurance plan, using her formidable negotiation skills to cut through the bureaucracy. Though the tension between her and Juliet remained palpable, they managed a forced civility for Harrison's sake. On a humid evening, Juliet was reading a parenting book on the sofa, her swollen feet propped on a cushion, when a sharp pain tore through her abdomen. She gasped, dropping the book, struggling to sit up. Mrs. Davies rushed in from the next room. Within minutes, regular contractions began. Juliet's water broke, in a surge of panic. Mrs. Davies grabbed the hospital bag they had prepared, quickly calling an ambulance. Harrison, who had just stepped out of the building for a quick errand, rushed back immediately when he received Mrs. Davies's frantic call. At the hospital, a blitz of doctors and nurses whisked Juliet away to a specialized maternity wing. The fluorescent lights, the crisp smell of disinfectant, and the hum of beeping machines created a chaotic symphony. Harrison arrived breathless, still in his tailored shirt and trousers. Charlie, alerted by Mrs. Davies, appeared moments later, her face etched with concern. Juliet's eyes flew open when she felt Harrison's hand on hers. Despite the whirl of activity, she managed a shaky smile. "I'm scared," she admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. Harrison leaned in, pressing his lips against her forehead. "I'm here. You are not alone." Soon, she was rushed into an operating room for an emergency C-section. Quadruplets rarely arrive in neat, predictable deliveries. Harrison was permitted inside, donning scrubs and a surgical mask. Charlie waited anxiously in the family area, while Mrs. Davies supervised, coordinating between the hospital staff and the anxious father-to-be. The surgery was intense. Monitors beeped, and the medical team moved with speed. Harrison held Juliet's hand as best he could, whispering reassuring words. Time stretched. Each second felt like a lifetime. Then, the first baby cried. A sharp, piercing wail that broke the tension. Juliet sobbed with relief. 3 more cries quickly followed, each distinct, echoing through the operating room in a chorus of new life. 2 girls, 2 boys. Nurses whisked them away for immediate checkups. Weights, APGAR scores, oxygen levels. All 4 were tiny, but stable, each requiring a brief stay in the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU, for monitoring. Harrison stood paralyzed. Tears of joy and awe streamed down his cheeks. He turned to Juliet, who was half dazed with exhaustion and euphoria. "They're perfect," he whispered. "They are so beautiful." She reached out, touching his cheek. "We did it," she breathed. The following days were a blur of hospital corridors, feeding schedules, and fragile hope. The quadruplets, Ethan, Owen, Lila, and Clara, remained in the NICU under close watch. Tubes and tiny monitors covered their delicate bodies, but the doctors were optimistic. Each day brought a milestone. Breathing unaided for a few minutes, taking milk, maintaining body temperature. Harrison spent hours hovering over their incubators, marveling at their tiny features. A fierce protectiveness surged in him, eclipsing any thought of corporate deals or stock portfolios. Juliet slowly recovered. The C-section left her sore and tired, but seeing her babies spurred her on. Harrison found himself running errands, fetching her favorite herbal teas, fluffing her pillows, and even sneaking in the plush stuffed animals she loved. For a time, it felt like they were forging a bond again, a strange and beautiful partnership, forged by the love for their children. Charlie, for her part, struggled to find her footing in this new landscape. She visited occasionally, always with a thoughtful gift in hand, but an unspoken tension persisted. Harrison sensed Charlie's disquiet. One evening, as they left the hospital together, she confessed, "It's hard to see you two like this, like a family. Where do I fit in?" Harrison squeezed her hand. "I want you here with me, but I understand this is complicated. Let's take it one day at a time. Right now, the focus has to be on the babies." Soon, the bigger question arose. Where would Juliet and the quadruplets live once they were released? She was still in the luxury apartment, but that was never meant to be permanent. Harrison's penthouse was big enough to accommodate them, but Charlie lived there part-time. Juliet hesitated to impose, and Charlie balked at sharing a living space with Harrison's ex-wife. A compromise was reached. Harrison would purchase a second, spacious apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood near Central Park, within minutes of the best medical care. This would become Juliet's space, giving her independence while ensuring the children had immediate access to top-tier medical care. Harrison's lawyers would draft custody agreements that allowed him to be a full co-parent. Juliet looked at him cautiously. "Are you sure you can handle half-week parenting? Your schedule is insane." Harrison chuckled softly, a hint of self-deprecation in his tone. "I'll adapt. I have a CFO, a team that can manage daily operations. I will not allow my children to grow up without knowing their father's face." She softened at his determination. "Agreed," she murmured. "We will try." Interactive question. The quadruplets have arrived. Which of the following is the biggest challenge for Harrison right now? A. Dealing with the inevitable media scandal. B. Finding time for Charlie. C. Juggling NICU visits and his CEO role. Comment A, B, or C below. Like this video and subscribe. The final chapter will reveal if Harrison chooses his heart or his empire, and the ultimate sacrifice he makes for his family. Chapter 5. The final choice and the release. Just as it seemed they were carving out a manageable path, the press picked up the story. A paparazzi photo of Harrison, leaving the maternity wing with tiny car seats in his hands, ignited a media firestorm. Headlines roared, "Billionaire CEO Harrison Vance revealed as father of quadruplets with ex-wife." Reporters swarmed the hospital. Tabloids spun wild theories. Was Charlie Bellwether left at the altar? Did Juliet Reyes trick Harrison for money? Harrison's PR team went into damage control, issuing a formal statement confirming the births and urging privacy. Charlie also made a brief statement supporting Harrison's paternity. For a moment, the unity shown in public was strangely reassuring to them all, but behind closed doors, the stress mounted. Harrison vented to Juliet. "I can't believe these vultures. I'm so sorry you have to go through this." She sighed, cuddling Owen, finally out of the NICU and in her arms. "I'll survive for the babies, but this is exactly what I feared, that our lives would become a public spectacle." Harrison nodded, jaw clenched. "I promise. Promise I will protect you." Across the room, Charlie stood, watching them with an unreadable expression. In the whirlwind of paternal fervor and maternal recovery, she felt more like an outsider than ever. The weeks passed. The quadruplets grew stronger, each developing a distinct personality. Ethan enjoyed staring at mobiles with wide, curious eyes. Lila fussed unless she was held. Clara squirmed with endless energy, always wanting to kick her tiny legs. Owen was calm, content to watch his siblings in silence. Harrison, now juggling fatherhood, found his priorities reforming. Morning feedings replaced morning stock analyses. Nighttime crying fits were the new board meetings. He surprised himself with the avidity with which he embraced it. Juliet, though still cautious, allowed the fragile warmth between them to grow. They shared tender moments, laughing at the baby's antics and reminiscing about old jokes. Yet both knew their relationship was complicated by years of pain and Charlie's presence. One night, after the babies finally fell asleep, Harrison and Juliet sat at the kitchen table in their new apartment. The place was filled with the soft hum of a white noise machine. A single lamp illuminated their faces. Harrison cleared his throat. "Jules, we have to talk about us, not just the children." She stiffened. "I know." He swallowed. "I still have feelings for you. I don't know if this can turn into something again, but I would be lying if I said it's purely about the children. I love you." Juliet's eyes glistened. "Harrison, part of me still loves you too. But we hurt each other, and now there's Charlie to consider. I can't be the other woman in your life." He ran his face through his hands. I know. It's all tangled up. Before the conversation could continue, Charlie walked in with a key. She paused in the doorway, taking in the intimate scene. A flicker of pain crossed her face. I'm interrupting, she said softly. Juliet started to rise. I'll give you two some privacy. Charlie gently made her sit down. No, please, stay. This is about all of us now. She took a deep, shaky breath, her corporate composure finally breaking. I can't do this anymore, Harrison. I see the way you look at her. I see the way she looks at you. These babies bonded you in a way I can't compete with. And I wonder if I even want to. Do I want to fight for a man's heart when it already belongs elsewhere? Harrison started to protest, but Charlie held up a hand. No. I respect your love for your children. I respect Juliet as their mother. But you and I are not the same. We have different visions of family and life. This whole situation has simply pulled back the curtain. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't want to be the second of your regrets or your new priorities. I deserve a partner who is fully committed, and you can't give me that anymore. She stepped forward, gently touching his cheek. I'm sorry. I think you will be a good father. Take care of them, and Juliet. She removed her engagement ring, placing it gently on the table. Without another word, Charlie walked out of the apartment. Charlie's departure closed one chapter of Harrison's life, but it opened another. He felt pain at losing a partner he respected, yet he also felt a strange relief, a liberation from a path that might have been built on denial. Juliet emerged from the nursery. The concern on her face deepened when she saw the ring on the table. She left. Harrison nodded, tears in his eyes. It's over. Juliet approached, placing a soft hand on his shoulder. Harrison, we are parents now. This may not be the right time for us to rush back into what we were. We need to heal. I need to rebuild trust in you. He stood up, turning to face her. I understand. I am here for you. In whatever way you need. But know this, I want our family to be together. Juliet's eyes filled with tears. We are a family, in our own complicated way. They embraced softly. Not an overtly romantic gesture, but one filled with acceptance and shared hope. The future remained uncertain, but for now, they had each other, and they had 4 little miracles who needed them to be strong, present, and united. Meaningful conclusion. The new foundation. 6 months later, a small gathering took place in a quiet corner of Central Park. Close friends and family surrounded Harrison and Juliet as they christened their 4 babies. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of changing leaves. Dressed in soft, coordinated outfits, the quadruplets, Ethan, Owen, Lila, and Clara, charmed everyone with their wide-eyed wonder. Harrison held Clara, while Juliet cradled Lila. Friends and family held the 2 boys. The couple stood before the officiant, exchanging smiles and promising to guide these children with love, respect, and unwavering support. Among the guests was Charlie, offering a genuinely warm smile. She had moved on, finding new beginnings of her own. She came to pay her respects, showing that complicated stories can still find peaceful resolutions. When the simple ceremony concluded, Harrison and Juliet exchanged a profound look. Life had taken them on a turbulent journey: divorce, heartbreak, and now quadruplet parenthood. The future still presented challenges, but in that moment, under the golden light filtering through the park's massive trees, they felt profoundly blessed. Holding hands, they walked towards the next chapter, determined to create a life that honored second chances, forgiveness, and, above all, the kind of love that grows fiercely from adversity. Their story was not perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. The CEO who once feared distraction had found that his true purpose, his only empire, was built on the chaos and unconditional love of his 4 children and the woman who taught him what truly mattered. Comment below with the word family if you believe Harrison and Juliet will successfully rebuild their relationship this time. Final call to action. Like this video if this roller coaster story touched your heart. Share the saga with a friend who needs to believe in second chances. Subscribe to the channel for more compelling stories of love, life, and redemption. What do you think Harrison should have done differently in his first marriage? Let us know. Chapter 6. The Beautiful Chaos and the Balance. 6 months after the christening, life settled into a new, exhilarating, and completely chaotic rhythm. Harrison's spacious new apartment near Central Park was no longer a symbol of compromise. It was the vibrant, noise-filled, love-saturated home for their instant family. Ethan, Owen, Lila, and Clara were now 6 months old, rolling, babbling, and mastering the art of synchronized crying. The meticulously organized life of the former CEO had been completely subsumed by the demands of quadruplet parenthood. Harrison had traded 6 a.m. market analysis for 6 a.m. diaper duty, and late-night strategy sessions were replaced by the delicate, whispered science of settling a quartet of infants. He found a profound, simple joy in this exhaustion, a feeling he had never accessed even at the peak of his financial success. Vance & Company was now running on a leaner, more autonomous structure. Harrison had officially stepped back from the relentless day-to-day operations, relying heavily on his COO. He kept his title, but dedicated his mental energy to the Harrison Vance Foundation, focusing on projects that supported single mothers and arts education, a direct nod to Juliet's early struggles. Despite the joy, the stress was immense. One typical Tuesday afternoon, the chaos reached its zenith. Harrison was on a crucial, low-volume conference call with his board about a major charitable acquisition, trying to sound authoritative while bouncing Owen on his knee. Juliet was attempting to feed Lila and Clara simultaneously in the kitchen, while Ethan decided this was the optimal moment to master rolling off his playmat. Suddenly, Owen let out a shriek that perfectly coincided with the board chairman asking Harrison for his final vote. "Mr. Vance, your thoughts on the proposal?" Harrison, flustered, muted the phone and turned to Juliet, whose face was stained with pure exhaustion. "I need 5 minutes. Ethan just ate the edge of the rug." Juliet laughed, a sharp, stressed sound. "Lila just spat half her pureed carrots onto my canvas." Harrison looked at the phone, then at his screaming son, and the decision was instantaneous. He whispered a quick, decisive, approved into the mute button, hung up, and tossed the phone onto the sofa. He walked over to Juliet and gently moved the high chairs apart. "Okay, we are officially on code red. I'll take the girls." They worked in tandem, a beautiful, imperfect choreography forged in the trenches of sleep deprivation. As the screaming subsided and the babies were settled into their rockers, Harrison sank onto the kitchen stool, running a hand through his hair. "I just hung up on the chairman," he confessed. Xian half laughing. Juliet leaned against the counter, her expression softening. The old Harrison would have flown to London to apologize. The new Harrison knows a full diaper is more critical than a full balance sheet. "I wouldn't trade this chaos for my old life," he said truthfully. She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "I know, but we need a balance, Harrison. Your dedication is incredible, but you're still trying to run your old life on your new schedule. You need to fully disconnect, to fully reconnect." She was right. He was still holding on to the edges of his former identity, afraid to let go of the control he had always relied upon. Later that week, following a deep conversation, Harrison walked into his office at Vance & Company, and, with the same clarity he once used to greenlight multi-million-dollar deals, He handed over his CEO title to his COO. He retained his position as chairman of the board and majority shareholder, but established a rigid rule: no calls before 10 a.m., no calls after 5 p.m., and absolutely no work on weekends. The decision was met with shock in the financial world, but a quiet, powerful understanding from Juliet. He hadn't just given up his title. He had surrendered his need for control, the root cause of their first divorce. Interactive. Question: if you were Juliet, what is the most important lesson you would want Harrison to teach your quadruplets about his past life? A. The value of money. B. The danger of ambition. C. The importance of self-forgiveness. Comment: A, B, or C. Epilogue. The new definition of wealth. Years passed, weaving together a tapestry of shared moments. The quadruplets, Ethan, Owen, Lila, and Clara, grew into lively, distinct children. Ethan, the thoughtful leader. Owen, the quiet observer. Lila, the magnetic personality. And Clara, the budding artist, often found sketching alongside her mother. Juliet and Harrison's relationship continued to strengthen. They were intentional about their love, participating in couples therapy and dedicating time each week to nurture their bond, ensuring their connection was built on mutual respect and vulnerability, not necessity. The apartment, once a reluctant compromise, became their sacred space. One sunny afternoon, 10 years after their initial divorce, Harrison and Juliet sat in Central Park, watching their children play a chaotic game of tag. Harrison looked at Juliet, her hand resting comfortably in his. "I remember thinking that day in the Hamptons that my life was over," he confessed. Juliet squeezed his hand. "It was," she said softly. "The old one was, and you let it go." He smiled, looking at his 4 beautiful, boisterous children. He was no longer the ruthless CEO of Wall Street. He was the dad who knew every lullaby and could change a diaper in record time. He was rich, yes, but his wealth was now measured in the depth of his commitments, the strength of his character, and the simple, everyday chaos of his family. Harrison Vance had finally learned that the only true empire worth building was the one you build with love. Comment below with the word balance if you admire Harrison's final decision to step back from the CEO role for his family.